So if you're watching this, there are two things that you have been telling yourself. The first thing that you've been telling yourself is that 7-string guitar is too difficult to play. I can barely play 6-string. So what's the point? And more than what's the point, what's the need? Because 7-string guitars are only for metal. It's only for heavy music. I have no use for playing a 7-string. Why should I even bother learning something that is so difficult? I have two things to say. Number one, 7-string guitars are not difficult at all. And number two, they are definitely not for metal only. And in fact, I would go further and say that in actively avoiding extended range, you're actually really missing out. And in this video, I'm going to tell you, number one, how a 7-string guitar can be used well beyond metal. There will be literally no distortion in this video. Maybe there'll be a little bit, but nothing high for sure. And more importantly, I'm going to show you the very easy way in which anyone who can play 6-string can literally pick up 7-string in maybe 2 weeks, maximum a month. Let's get right into it. So hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. Let me switch this off. I'm Utkarsh coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe and share. It really helps. Now, associating 7-string guitars or extended range guitars with metal is probably one of the worst things that's happened. In my opinion, of course, it really limits the instrument. Not everyone is into metal. And even in metal, it makes people obsess about this low string and what you can do with it. And that is such a shame, because the point of a 7-string guitar isn't the open 0 and then whatever you can do, katak, 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 katak. That isn't really the point. The point of a 7-string guitar is, if you think about it, if you look at a piano, I have a little keyboard over here I'm going to lift up. If you look at a piano or a keyboard, which I have just lifted up, it has a range. It has a significant range of sounds. You can go from the very bass to the very high. And when you look at the guitar as an instrument, while on one hand you have many different places where you can play the same note, you can play here, or wherever, or you can play the same note over there, slightly out of tune. Point is, you have that advantage. You can play the same note in different places, but you can't play as many notes, which is a shame, because you need a bass guitar to get to the bass registers, you need a normal guitar to get to the high registers, and so on and so forth. This is not to say that 7-string guitars or 8-string guitars completely solve the problem, but they give you a significantly higher range. And having that range opens you up to a lot of different things. Now, the way I use it is because I am a big fan of ambient music, is I use it to create textures. You can have this low, in this particular case it's low G, because this guitar is tuned to D standard on the 6 strings, and then you have a low G which is like a drop D. I'll explain that in a bit. So I do use that to create the range, and then you can have all these very high notes on top of the very low notes. So I like that. But there's another utility, chord voicings. Typically if we look at major and minor, we are kind of stuck with the usual shapes, power chords. But then when you do this, it opens up 7-string chords, and they're not very complicated. So for example, a very simple way, because the bottom string is like a drop D, very simple thing that you can do is you can do like so I'm doing maybe a G chord over here. So this is a G minor major. It's just 3 notes. How beautiful that sounds. This is a normal G here, which is, I'm playing it as A, don't get confused. So nice. So that's an alternate voicing. I'm going to tune this up a little bit. If you think on a normal guitar, this would be E, this is B, except everything is one step down. So now you can play your chords, your regular chords, but you can play them. It just sounds so different. This is what you would call, what is this now? C versus. I'm not saying you'll use those notes all the time, but there are definite applications. And of course, if you go and do the drop D on this one. So now that you've done this, you have two guitars in one, in a way. You have a drop D guitar and a normal guitar, because you can play all your cowboy chords A, B, G, on the bottom 6 strings. But the relationship of on the top 6 strings, but the relationship of the bottom string becomes the drop D relationship. So you can do all your drop D stuff. The easy way to play a power chord with one finger. So what I'm trying to say is that there is so much utility to having these extra notes. It's crazy. You discover things you do things that you didn't know. For me, both the examples that I showed you, which is having the droning low note, as well as these modified chords, right? I discovered them by myself. I didn't find them on the internet. And it was just because you have this extra note, this extra string to play around with. And I'm sure that based on your musical style, you will discover many, many other different things that you can do with it. Nothing to do with metal. Now, this brings us to the next question. Why do I say it is super easy to learn? Why do I say anyone can learn it? Well, if you play 6-string guitar, it really is just a matter of a week or two of playing to get to 7-string. A lot of people, they think that's not the case. They think it's really difficult. There's so much more, one more string to think about, notes, etc. It's not. And I'll tell you what is the very, very simple trick. Take the 7-string guitar, and when you get a 7-string guitar, forget about the 7th string. Because the biggest problem is that when you play 7-string guitar, you get confused because you start measuring from the 7th string downwards, and then your chords are all wrong because you're playing top down. You need to play from the bottom up, from here to here, which is forget about this 7th string, just play a regular guitar. Almost like playing guitar again, relearning guitar, but it's super fast because you already play guitar, so it takes you no time at all. So forget the 7th string, get used to the bottom 6 strings, or top 6 strings rather. Get used to them like you would get used to on a normal guitar. It'll take a bit of time because initially you'll find yourself going for this low B string because it's just there. It's the first string that you see. But just ignore it. Just forget about it. Just play with the top 6 strings, which are bottom from your perspective. Just play E to E. Just keep playing that. Play that for weeks. Play all the songs you know. Maybe you know Sweet Child of Mine. Maybe you know Hotel California. Maybe you know, I don't know, anything that you probably know. Back in Black. Just keep playing that. One day you'll get to a place which will only take a week, by the way. It's really fast because you already play guitar. So all the songs you can play, you'll initially, first time you play, you'll struggle, but then you'll start playing it immediately, like 15 minutes later. It's like relearning guitar except at express pace with a cheat code. And it actually makes you rediscover a lot of songs that you forgot because these were songs you played earlier when you were learning guitar. So do that. After a week, maybe 2, depending on how long you play this, you'll find out that you've completely forgotten about the top of this low B string. You've completely forgotten about it. And when you've completely forgotten, and you can play this guitar at will like a 6-string guitar without ever thinking about the 7th string, once you're at that position, now you start bringing in the low string. And then you start simple. You start off with maybe you just play with the first 2 strings, first 3 strings. Maybe you start playing a few chords here and there, just on 3 strings, whatever. Just bring it in gradually. Maybe you just use it as the background for droning, maybe as I keep doing. All you're doing is hitting it really while you're just playing a lead on the... So you're just playing whatever you're playing on the 6th string, but you're just hitting that. Just getting used to playing that string. And then gradually you start playing more chords, you start playing it better. And before you know it, you have a 6-string guitar and you have an extra note, and you can just play it. You don't even have to think about it. And then you start doing all the fancy things you want to start trying. Give it a try. Just my suggestion is just get a cheap second-hand 7-string. There are plenty out there. I always recommend the PRS SC Custom 24/7. This is not the SVN that exists now. This is a model that they made like 7-8 years ago. You can get one cheap for like $400-500. They're made in Korea. They're really high quality, and they're very small scale length. They're actually not. This is a long scale length. This is 26.5. They are 25 in scale length. The same scale length as a regular guitar, so they're super easy to get used to. Now, if you talk to someone in the metal community, they'll tell you, oh, this is shit because the scale length is only 25. For a 7-string guitar, you need at least 26.5. And I'll tell you that is frankly bullcrap. If you're doing high staccato riffing on the low E string, on the low B string, yes, maybe. But for the majority of us who just want to play whatever, you just want to play chords or whatever else it is you want to do, 25 in scale is absolutely fine. So don't let the metalhead's aversion for low short scales put you off and make you, think of other things. Just get this. There are plenty of other examples. I'm giving you this one because this is what I have experience with. Get the PRS Custom 24/7 or something equivalent for $400-500 or even less, maybe, depending on what you can find. Just see if you stick to it. Just give it a couple of weeks. Do what I said. Play only the bottom 6 strings. Then you add in the 7th string. And yeah, I bet that given you already know how to play guitar, your success rate is going to be pretty high. And once you feel that 7th string is something for you, then maybe you can invest in a nicer 7th string guitar. Alright folks, I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.